Hi everyone, welcome to today's tutorial. We are going to make this fall poncho. It's a two-piece, two equal rectangles that we are going to join together. Basically, we are going to use double crochets and at some point single crochets. Please don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. We are going to require yarn. I'm using a medium size yarn, stitch markers, a yarn needle, a crochet hook. I'm using size 4 millimeters and a tape measure. You will require to take your measurements from neck to waistline or how long you want your poncho to be. For this poncho, I'm going to make a chain equivalent to 20 inches. That is from neck to slightly above the waistline. Here I have my chain. I've done a total of 80. For the pattern you're using on this poncho does not have any multiples, so you can make a chain long enough to your length preference. My chain here is measuring around 22 inches, which is okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to make double crochets throughout the first row. So on the third stitch from the hook, make a double crochet and continue with double crochets throughout the first row. The chain 2 we skipped at the beginning of the row will not count as a stitch. So if you are crocheting the same size as mine, you should have 78 stitches. At the end of the row, chain 2, turn your work and continue with double crochets. Our chain 2 counts as our first double crochet. We are at the end of row 2. We begin row 3 and we will make a mesh pattern. So we will chain 3. Our chain 2 counts as our double crochet and chain 1 as our chain space. Skip one double crochet, make a double crochet on the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, make a double crochet. Continue with the mesh pattern, chaining 1, skipping 1. And here we are at the end of our row 3. As I told you, it does not have any multiples, so it's not a must to end your row with the mesh. I've finished my row with the double crochet, you can see. So on the following row, we are going to make double crochets throughout on the chain 1 space and on top of the double crochet. Continue with double crochets on each and every stitch we meet at the end of the row. We are coming to the end of our row 4. Ensure you are maintaining your stitches. As for this piece, I'm maintaining my 78 stitches. Our next row will be a repeat of our mesh pattern. So chain 3 and turn your work. Skip one double crochet and double crochet on the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, make a double crochet. That will be the repeat pattern. Here we are at the end of our row. Make a double crochet on that last stitch and chain 2. Turn your work. We will now continue with our double crochets on each and every stitch. At the end of every row, remember to chain 2 and turn your work. Our chain 2 in this case counts as our first double crochet. So continue with double crochets for a total of 6 rows. And remember, after every row, you chain 2, turn your work. I'll meet you at the end of our 6th row. Here we have our 6 rows of double crochets, and this will be our pattern. What we are going to do next is repeat our mesh pattern. So chain 3, turn your work, skip 1 double crochet and make a double crochet on the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, make a double crochet. Remember, that's how we are making the mesh. At the end of the row, chain 2, turn your work, continue with double crochets on each and every stitch, on top of the double crochet and on the chain space. Here we are at the end of our row. Again, we will continue with the mesh. We will chain 3, skip 1 double crochet, make a double crochet on the next. Chain 1, skip 1. Continue with that mesh throughout the row. At the end of the row, chain 2 and turn your work. We are going to make double crochets again for the next 6 rows as we did before. Then we repeat our mesh. That will be the pattern. 6 rows of double crochets, repeat the mesh, and in between the mesh, remember that 1 row of double crochet in between. Make your rectangle piece long enough as you prefer. I'll meet you when I'm done with mine. Here I have my first rectangle, and remember, since we started with 2 rows of double crochets mesh, you have to finish with the same because they have to be similar and identical. You finish with 2 rows of double crochets and that mesh. This piece is measuring 38 inches, so it is 38 by 20 inches. It's okay for the size I'm making. And here I have my second rectangle. I had already made the first one. Now put your two rectangles together. They should be similar in terms of measurements, pattern, and all that. At this point, you need your stitch markers to mark the neck hole. My neck hole is measuring about, it's 10 inches, which is okay. It is fine with this size of poncho that I'm making. Now we need to join them together. At this point, you can use your crochet hook or your yarn needle. I prefer using my crochet hook, and I'll use single crochets. I had not cut the yarn from the previous piece of rectangle, so that is the yarn I'm going to continue using. So continue with your single crochets. I'll meet you at the end or at the corner of the neck hole. And here we are at the neck hole. So tighten your yarn. I had already done the other parts of the neck, and this is how it looks like so far. At this point, you can now remove your stitch markers. We are now going to work on the neck. We will make few rows of double crochets just to make the neck a little bit neat. So chain 2, and that chain 2 will not count as a stitch. So on each and every space we have, we will make 2 double crochets. For that space we have 2 double crochets there. Make 2 more double crochets on that space. There we have our 2 double crochets. The next space for our mesh, 2 double crochets. Continue with that. We'll meet at the end of this first row. Here we are at the end of our row, and we will slip stitch on top of our first chain 2. Chain 2. From here we are going to work with front post and back post double crochets. So I'll start with making 2 front post double crochets, and 2 back post double crochets. Continue with 2 front post double crochets and 2 back post double crochets. I'll do a total of 5 rows, and I'll meet you when I'm done. Here I have my 5 rows of front post and back post double crochets, and that's enough for me. Slip stitch on top of our chain 2, chain 1 and cut your yarn. This is how our neck looks like. Now we are going to work on the bottom part of our poncho. Again, I had not cut my yarn for that piece. I'll just continue with it. And for the first row of this part, we are going to make a mesh. So we chain 3, we skip that row of double crochet and make a double crochet in between the 2 rows. Chain 1 between the mesh and that double crochet, make a double crochet. Chain 1, skip the mesh row, make a double crochet. That is how we are going to make this row. Continue. I'll meet you at our first corner to show you how to do it. And here we are at our first corner. We have to maintain this corner, so we make a mesh again, chain 1, and at that corner you make a double crochet, chain 1, on the same stitch make another double crochet. So that stitch we will have 2 double crochets. Continue with the mesh, you chain 1, skip 1 double crochet, and double crochet on the next. We are coming to the end of our first mesh row. Again, on that corner make a double crochet and chain 1 and slip stitch on top of the second chain. For the second row of our bottom part, we chain 2 and continue with double crochets throughout. On top of our double crochet and on the chain space, make double crochets throughout. I'll meet you at the first corner to show you how to maintain it. We are almost at the first corner, so we are going to make double crochet on top of that previous double crochet, then make another double crochet inside the chain 1, chain 1, double crochet inside again, and double crochet on top of that other stitch. Continue with double crochets again. You can see inside our chain 1 we have 2 double crochets. That is how we are going to maintain all the corners in this row. Almost at the end of our second row. Again, remember to make double crochet, chain 1, double crochet inside the chain 1 space from the previous row and slip stitch on top of the chain 2. This row will now be the last row, and we will put a small pattern. So you chain 2 and on the same stitch make a single crochet. We are going to use single crochets on this row. Make 5 single crochets again. On the 5th stitch, chain 2, single crochet on the same. That is the pattern we are going to make on this row. 5 single crochets, and on that 5th stitch you chain 2 and you single crochet on the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Chain 2, single crochet on the same stitch. This is how our pattern will look like. Continue. I'll meet you at the first corner. Here we are, and we will continue with 5 single crochets. So we will have to make single crochets inside the chain. 1 space, chain 2, and 2 more single crochets inside. So at the corner of every of the poncho, make sure you have 2 single crochets inside that corner. You chain 2, make 2 more single crochets, then you continue with your pattern. Continue with this pattern till the end of the row. And here we have our lovely poncho, 2 rectangles that we have joined together. And here we have our neck hole, nicely done. And the pattern is so simple and beautiful. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and share, and comment down below. We'll see you in our next tutorial. Bye bye.